So on one of the podcasts that I do, Movie Dudes, we've begun doing retro reviews. Um, Not entirely our idea. I mean, retro reviews aren't exactly unique or something that hasn't been done before. But we specifically got the idea from Jonathan Kim, a film critic who's begun doing something called Rethink reviews for the Young Turks Network. Anyways, our first retro review was Total Recall, which we both agreed was kind of goofy, but Chris liked it a lot. I thought it was fun, but it's definitely flawed and could be improved upon. Um, and the second one we're gonna do on next week's episode of Movie Dudes is the China Syndrome, which was actually the first film that Jonathan Kim did for Rethink reviews. So not only did we get the idea for doing these retro reviews from him, but we got one of our early selections from his first selection because neither of us had heard of the China Syndrome or seen it. So we figured we'd give it a shot. It's a 1979, thriller, I guess. Sort of a drama though. Um, it's about a couple. It's about it's got Jane Fonda, Michael Douglas, and Jack Lemmon as the main players. The movie was actually nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Actor, Jack Lemmon, Best Actress, Jane Fonda, and Best Set Design for the recreation that they did of what it looks like inside a power plant, which hadn't really been done before. There wasn't really any movies about nuclear power plants. So what it's about is this Kimberly Wells, played by Jane Fonda, is kind of like a reporter who does like puff pieces and human interest things for the nightly news for like a local news station in California. Michael Douglas is her cameraman who he works like freelance for them, and they're doing another one of these puff pieces about nuclear energy. Am I saying nuclear right? I hope so. I hope I'm not sounding like George Bush. They're doing a puff piece at this power plant, and then you know that is one of the shift supervisors is played by Jack Lemmon, and his name in the film is Jack Goodall. They're there, they're shooting this piece, they're looking at the control room, and then they witness a near meltdown where, like, Jack Lemmon and all these guys are freaking out. And then from there, they want to do a story on the news. They think it's a great lead story, but the news is iffy about it. There's ethics concerns, and there's also like corporate concerns. And Jack Lemmon's character begins to suspect that there is safety hazards in the plant, and that they're maybe cutting some corners in the interest of profit that could be very, very dangerous. So it's a film about nuclear power, about journalism, definitely about corporate greed. That's the heart of it. There's also a little bit of feminism in it because this is the '70s, and um, Jane Fonda's character Kimberly Wells is a female reporter that's trying to get taken seriously when they don't. The networks don't take women seriously. So it's got kind of all those things in it, like wrapped in it, and it's kind of a drama, but wrapped in like thriller elements. With I think it builds to a pretty exciting climax and an absolutely brilliant final scene. I think the final shot is just absolutely brilliant, and it encompasses a lot of what the film is about in one like single image and brief like little shot. Um, so the way it basically goes is they're trying to get their story published on the nightly news, and Jack Lemmon's character begins to suspect that something's wrong, and then they start to work together to uncover the conspiracy and what's really going on at this plant and with the corporate interests and stuff behind it. Um, I just think it's a very good, very powerful film. Surprisingly, timeless. A lot of the stuff in it. Uh, you might think it's a bit of an activist movie because you look at the people involved. You got Jane Fonda, she's a known activist. Michael Douglas as well, and he's also the producer on it. And it is one of those like issue movies where all the things I already talked about, and especially nuclear power, which at the time people were very afraid of, um, and a lot of like liberal types were against nuclear power at all. And you might think that it would get in the way of your enjoyment, which I'll be interested to see what my co-host thinks on that because he's more of a conservative leaning guy. But I think that the human drama and the other elements, the thriller elements, and the corporate greed element of it, which is kind of a liberal thing, I think they overshadow anything it has to say about nuclear power or feminism or whatever. Not that I don't think those are bad things. I'm a little sketchy on nuclear power. I'm no expert on it, but as far as I understand it, it's pretty safe. It has a much stronger safety record than coal, which they even say that in the movie. Um, I think the biggest problem with nuclear power is where to store the waste. Even then, it's pretty safe. You could bury it somewhere, but people, not in my backyard. That's the problem. Um, but I'm no expert, so my thoughts on that are kind of irrelevant. But even if I think nuclear power is safe, it doesn't get in the way of me enjoying this movie, is what I'm trying to say. So, uh, and at the same time, with nuclear power, if something does go wrong, it won't affect just the miners or whatever. It affects the entire surrounding area, and probably in the film they say it could, if this thing goes wrong, it could have wiped out like an area the size of Pennsylvania and made it uninhabitable for however long. Um, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a second, I guess. But and there has been nuclear power plant disasters. But anyways, I don't want to get too much into that, I guess. But just I think it's a bit of a slow build, and it's an older film, so it's gonna feel a little old, and it's more character and story driven, which is good. That's fine, but it does have that older feel to it. It doesn't feel completely modern, but just overall very very entertaining. I thought that Jane Fonda and Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon is fantastic in it. He's just great as playing this company man who turns whistleblower. And Jane Fonda is actually very, very good. And she has to carry like one of the strongest, I think the best scene in the film, the final scene. And she makes it work. She's awesome in it. So, very surprising. Michael Douglas, this is like his first film, I think his first movie role. And, he's good in it, but, he's not a major. He's just kind of like this radical, activist camera guy type with long hair and a beard and stuff. But yeah, just really good acting all around. Solid story, lots of interesting themes, and like I said before, I think very exciting ending with chases and crazy things happening. I don't want to spoil anything. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Um, a couple interesting tidbits about this movie. Um, it came out like in early March of 1979, and like 12 days after it came out, uh, Island happened in Pennsylvania, which is very weird. And it's weird because like at the time, some people thought that it was like a publicity stunt for the movie or something, and obviously it wasn't. But once that happened, the movie became like a blockbuster hit. People wanted to, learn more about nuclear power, and the movie was kind of like prophetic. Like it predicted what could happen. Michael Douglas denies. I was watching the special features on it and stuff. Michael Douglas denies that it made it hit. He thought that 3 Mile Island hurt the movie or whatever. But I mean, I think the facts are out there that the movie was a pretty big success, and you know, I don't think 3 Mile Island would have hurt it. And it did go on to get like nominated for all these awards, which I think it deserved. It's a pretty incredible film. It's right up the alley of something like Network or All the President's Men. It's just in that vein. I haven't seen Network yet, but I know what it's about. It's one of the first movies that show how the news media works. From an inside perspective, like behind the scenes. It's one of the first movies about nuclear power. It's one of the first movies about corporate greed, probably. And it's very good. It's a very good movie. It stands up well. Like I was very much involved in it, and like I said, the whole ending was very great. I actually watched the final scene like a dozen times because I was just amazed by what they did in the final scene. So, I'm gonna say this is a classic, and this is like kind of like a hidden gem kind of classic. So I'll give it 5 out of 5 stars if that'll help you, put it on your Netflix queue or whatever you're gonna do, pirate it, whatever. Um, yeah, see it, and we'll be reviewing it next week on Movie Dudes, along with Fright Night and Super, hopefully, as well as some other quick picks. So, anyways, thanks for watching, and of course, I'll always be back for reaction to Breaking Bad. All right, see you guys next time.